What's up, Black and Gold Nation? What an unforgettable night we had yesterday. The Pittsburgh Steelers once again proved why they're one of the most feared teams in the NFL. A massive victory over the Patriots, the kind that makes your heart race and fills every fan with pride to wear the black and gold. This is Pittsburgh football. Pure grit, pure power, pure tradition on the field. So hit that like button right now to spread this energy across the entire nation. And I want to see your thoughts in the comments. What was the most epic moment of the game for you? Let's celebrate together, because this victory needs to echo throughout the entire league. What if I told you that just 3 weeks into the season, the Pittsburgh Steelers are already being written off by some voices around the league? That whispers of pure luck victories, offensive dysfunction, and lost potential are circling this franchise that refuses to die quietly. But here's the thing. If you followed this team long enough, you know the Steelers thrive when everyone else is ready to bury them. And that's exactly the situation we're staring at right now. Let's break it down, because whether you're frustrated, optimistic, or somewhere in between, you'll want to hear every detail of what's really happening inside this team. Some critics are saying the Steelers should be sitting at 0-3, claiming their 2 wins were gifts. Nothing more than fortune falling their way. But if you
actually look at what went down in those games, that's far from the truth. In Week 1 against the Jets, it wasn't luck that delivered Chris Boswell into position for the clutch field goal. It was a calculated, gutsy drive under pressure. It wasn't chance that kept the Jets from responding late. It was 2 critical defensive stops, back-to-back, when the game hung in the balance. Then came New England. 5 turnovers forced. Let's be clear. You don't just luck your way into 5 turnovers in the NFL. You create them. A tip pass turned interception thanks to Cam Hayward's awareness. A fumble ripped out at the goal line, again by Hayward, while diving no less. And 3 more forced fumbles on top of that. These weren't gifts. These were earned plays by a defense that, under Mike Tomlin, has made a reputation out of showing up exactly when it matters most. That's why Tomlin's win percentage in one-score games, over 60% across 18 seasons, is among the best in football. The Steelers didn't stumble into those victories, they took them. But, of course, it hasn't all been grit and glory. The offensive line, 3 weeks in, is without question holding this team back. Opposing defenses are sitting back in 2 high safety shells, daring Pittsburgh to run, and the line simply hasn't made them pay. When a defense doesn't even need to adjust to stop your ground game, that problem cascades through the rest of the offense. Suddenly, throwing deep becomes nearly impossible. Suddenly, Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback who has built a career on big-time throws, is being forced into methodical, low-risk drives that rarely produce explosive plays. Arthur Smith's offense, one that depends heavily on the run game to make play action deadly, has been handcuffed by an offensive line that isn't commanding respect. Now, some fans are putting the blame squarely on Arthur Smith himself, claiming he doesn't know what he's doing. That's a stretch. Through 3 games, this offense has opened strong, scoring on every first possession. That's a sharp turnaround from last season's early woes. Even in the red zone, a place where last year's team constantly faltered, Pittsburgh has been efficient, should be perfect. In fact, if not for an outlier mistake on a scramble drill by Calvin Austin III, Rodgers should already be leading the league in touchdown passes. Smith's philosophy is straightforward. He doesn't run a flashy, constantly evolving system like Sean McVay or Ben Johnson. He runs a defined set of concepts, marrying play action with the ground game. The problem? Without a dominant rushing attack, that system loses bite. Rodgers has been steady, smart with the ball outside of a couple poor decisions, but even he can't turn water into wine if the trenches aren't giving him a platform. Smith isn't the root of the problem, but unless the offensive line turns things around, his scheme won't reach full potential. And then there's the question of weapons. Roman Wilson, a 3rd-round pick with solid upside, has been invisible, 1 catch for 7 yards across 3 games, and that in garbage time. Rodgers doesn't trust him, plain and simple. That leaves DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III as the only consistent receiving threats. For a quarterback like Rodgers, that's not enough, which is why the idea of going after a 3rd legitimate wide receiver before the deadline, maybe Tyreek Hill, maybe Romeo Doubs, maybe another option, is very real. Short of a trade, Isaiah Hodgins could be next in line for an expanded role, but let's be honest, when you're talking about Hodgins over a 3rd-round investment like Wilson, that's a disappointment. The Steelers need another weapon if they're serious about taking this offense from serviceable to threatening. And that brings us to the big claim: there's no hope left. The Super Bowl dream is already dead. That's where I push back the hardest. Look, this isn't a perfect football team. The flaws are real, especially along the line. But with Aaron Rodgers still capable of slinging it, with Jaylen Warren proving to be a dynamic back. With the defense continuing to force turnovers and hunt quarterbacks, there is still a path forward. Add another receiver, maybe another piece in the trenches, get healthier on defense, and suddenly this team looks dangerous in December and January. It won't be easy, but nothing about the Steelers ever is. That's the DNA of this franchise. Win ugly, win tough, and keep punching until the final whistle. So now the question falls to you, the fans. Do you see this as a team that can scrape its way into true contention, or do you believe the flaws are too deep to overcome? Can Rodgers, Warren, and this defense carry Pittsburgh into a real playoff run, or is the offensive line destined to sink the ship? Drop your thoughts below, because this season is far from decided, and every opinion in Steelers Nation matters right now. Let's dig even deeper, because the story of the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers isn't just about wins and losses. It's about identity, resilience, and whether this team has the backbone to evolve in real time. 3 weeks into the season, the picture isn't pretty, but there are threads of hope woven throughout the struggles. And if you followed this franchise long enough, you know that sometimes it takes the darkest stretches to bring out the best in black and gold. The offensive line has become the lightning rod for fan frustration, and for good reason. Week after week, it's the same narrative. No push in the run game, no consistent pocket for Aaron Rodgers, no reason for defenses to respect Pittsburgh's ability to stretch the field. But here's where the conversation shifts. This is still a very young group, and youth in the trenches means inconsistency. It's not impossible for them to gel, but it requires patience, coaching, and a level of development that, if we're honest, Pat Meyer has yet to fully prove he can deliver. That's the gamble the Steelers made, rolling the dice on potential rather than proven production. And it's a gamble that could decide the season. If this line comes together, the path to double-digit wins opens. If it doesn't, the ceiling collapses fast. Arthur Smith, for his part, has done enough to keep this offense from falling into complete dysfunction. Opening drive touchdowns in every game, a cleaner red zone execution rate than we've seen in years. Those are signs of progress. But here's the problem. When defenses adapt mid-game, when the script runs out, that's when the cracks begin to show. Smith's scheme is built on repetition and discipline, but without a reliable run game to sell the play action, Rodgers is left running a stripped-down version of the playbook. It's like taking a sports car out with half a tank and bald tires. You can rev the engine, but you're not going anywhere fast. Fans want fireworks, and Rodgers is wired for them. But until Smith's system gets the foundation it needs, we're watching a lot of grinding drives with little payoff. Then there's the wide receiver puzzle. Roman Wilson's disappearing act can't be ignored. 1 catch in 3 games doesn't just say slow start, it says non-factor. And Rodgers' body language tells the rest of the story. He doesn't look his way. Not in critical downs, not in the red zone, not even on simple routes when coverage dictates an easy throw. For a rookie who was supposed to add depth and versatility, it's a glaring hole. That forces the spotlight on DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III. Metcalf is the anchor, the physical presence who can bully corners and stretch defenses vertically. Austin, quick and shifty, has carved out a role, but asking him to shoulder WR2 responsibilities without consistent help is a tall order, which is why trade rumors are already bubbling. Bringing in a Tyreek Hill or Romeo Dew or even giving Isaiah Hodgins a bigger shot would shake up the depth chart in a much-needed way. Imagine Rodgers with 3 trustworthy weapons instead of 2, that alone could tilt close games back in Pittsburgh's favor. And we can't forget the defense. If there's one area of this team that's lived up to the Steelers' identity, it's that side of the ball. Cam Hayward's heroics against New England were vintage Pittsburgh, forcing turnovers in the clutch, creating chaos at the goal line, and reminding everyone that defense still wins games in this city. Add in a relentless pass rush that continues to find ways to disrupt even when the offense sputters, and you've got the backbone of a contender. If the offense can just meet them halfway, this isn't a 9-win team, it's a 12-win team. Which brings us back to the heart of the debate. Is there still hope? Detractors point to the offensive line, to Roman Wilson's vanishing act, to the lack of offensive explosions. But believers see Rodgers' poise, Jaylen Warren's explosiveness, and a defense that refuses to fold. The truth? Both sides are right. The flaws are real, but the talent is too. This season could swing either way, and it's rare for a team to stand at such a fork in the road this early. So, here's the challenge, Steelers Nation, look past the noise, past the headline screaming Overreaction Monday, and ask yourself what you see. Do you see a team drowning in mistakes? Or do you see a team that's 1 or 2 adjustments away from being dangerous again? Because as long as Mike Tomlin is prowling that sideline, as long as veterans like Hayward are setting the tone, and as long as Rodgers can still launch it 40 yards into a tight window, this team has a fighting chance. But now, I turn it back to you. Do you believe this version of the Pittsburgh Steelers can claw their way into playoff relevance, maybe even shock the league come January? Or are the cracks too deep, the offensive line too porous, the weapons too thin? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this isn't just a season, it's a test of faith, a battle for belief in what black and gold truly stand for.